Here we go from timcast.com. Russia activates world's most powerful nuke. The Satan II missile is 1,000 times stronger than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and could destroy the UK in 6 minutes. Now, I want to slow down there a minute. And the most powerful nuke, there's a variety of reasons why it's described that way. But I think it's fair to say that there is a diminishing return on the power of the nuclear weapons we currently have. And it's because, I love Moore's Law. You guys are familiar with Moore's Law, right? Mm-hmm. That every 2 years, the processing power doubles or whatever. Yeah. And then eventually got to the point where they were like, no, it's officially going to stop. But then they did multi-core processors. So they figured out a way that make the law technically keep going. That's the thing with nuclear weapons. It got to the point where we had these very, very powerful nukes. We had Tsar Bomba. And then eventually someone was like, I got an idea. Let's just put 12 nukes in one rocket. And now we've got something substantially more powerful. And it's like, okay, well, there you go. So for this one, it is powerful. But we've got nukes that are 1,000 to 1,250 times more powerful than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Satan II missile, while massive and extremely powerful, standing at 100 feet high, nearly unstoppable, is one of, I would say in my opinion, not that I'm a combat expert or anything, one of the most powerful nuclear weapons. It's being deployed into combat duty. And now I already know a lot of people, we've got one super chat from Tim Jake saying that it's standard replacement of obsolete equipment and things like that. Some people are saying, oh, don't be so dramatic. Here's why I think this is, there's a reason we bring this up. I think I have the story right here from the AP. Ukrainian drones strike deep in Russian territory, Moscow says, while a barrage in Kiev kills 2. Vladimir Putin said they would not use nukes unless they were facing an existential threat. And now we are escalating to the point. Insider reported just the other day, 2 days ago, the ruble is failing, and now more Russians are cutting back on buying basic goods like food and toothpaste. You've got several now military strikes in Russia. There was a military incursion into Russia from the Ukrainian side, and now Russia is deploying, whether it's a standard replacement or the activation of their most powerful weapon. We are escalating to that point. The most important thing to understand with this is reality. There is no point where someone comes and grabs you by the shoulders and screams, the nukes have been launched, it's happening now. Almost everything that happens is gradually and then suddenly, which means when we look back on history, 100 years from now, when they look back, they're not going to teach young people, assuming there are people, I don't know. They're not going to teach them that, in today's class, we're going to read about the 2 year for the next 2 years of school. We're going to be reading about the day-to-day, monotony of the political class and politics in these countries. No, they're going to say the date was November, 17th, 2020, with Donald Trump now contesting the election. This led to the July 40th, the July 15th, whatever. And then we saw 1 year later the deployment of the Satan II missile. Of course, 2 years after that, it was deployed and New York City was heavily damaged. That's how quickly it goes when you're going through history. For us sitting here right now, understand this could be something, it could be nothing, I don't know. But this is how it will always be. Another grain of sand is added to the heap. Yeah. I have to say, when Russia activates one of the most powerful nuclear weapons that we've been fearing for some time, they've expressed the intent to use nuclear weapons in the event they face an existential threat. And now we are entering into war on Russian territory and a threat to their existence. We're a lot closer than we have been in a very, very long time to the use of nuclear weapons. Now, I am not saying they're going to nuke New York or anything like that, but New York did put out a PSA, what was it, like 2 years ago, about what to do in the event of a nuclear strike. More importantly, keep your eyes open for an escalation of this war. Tucker Carlson warned that in order to stop Trump, they will declare hot war with Russia officially. I think the first thing we'll see is likely going to be tactical nuclear weapons in the combat field, nuclear artillery. I do not think we're going to see the use of the Satan II missile on a civilian target like a city. That serves little purpose other than to try and end the war outright. I don't think it would be effective this early on in the conflict, but I'm curious what you guys think.
I think that the fact that they've activated it has changed the game, because the United States is going to have some kind of reaction, right? The Soviet Union Russia's not going to be able to put a weapon like that into play and expect the United States to not do anything. So I imagine that there's going to be some kind of escalation. And again, it's not going to be like the U.S. is going to just start deploying nuclear weapons. But I don't know what it would be, but I don't think this is going to go unanswered. And it just goes back to what I've been saying, or we've all kind of been agreeing on, is I don't see the exit. I don't see the off-ramp. There's a lot of things that are happening, and there has been nothing at all since Russia invaded that has moved the needle towards a ceasefire, de-escalation, ending combat activities. Nothing in 2 years now, or year and a half. So I still don't see the off ramp. Turning on nukes is what everyone's afraid of because Russia's nuclear armed. I don't see how it gets fixed.
There was an attempt at a peace talk between, I think, Zelensky and Putin even early on. And then Boris Johnson went down there and ended the peace talks abruptly. And I think Victoria Nuland might have been involved. So essentially Britain and the United States were like, no. Peace is not a good idea. We need this war.
I don't know.
For a weapon system. Do you remember that?
I don't know.
This is something that people mention a lot. I don't have data to pull up right now on me, and it's anecdotal, so I can't prove that happened, but I've heard it a lot. So that would at least explain that there are some people that Zelensky doesn't want the war. I mean, I don't think Zelensky wants the fight. I don't think he wants the people to die. I don't think
Zelensky's come right out and said that his goal is to totally just take back Crimea. Zelensky said that.
Yeah.
So he's not. So it's not like he's not looking for any kind of de-escalation or whatever.
But it's not Zelensky. It's NATO.
That's what I'm saying. It's Boris Johnson and Victoria Nuland pushing Zelensky, and probably will kill him if he doesn't play it.
I don't think they're pushing him. I think they're playing him like a marionette.
Man, I don't know. It's rough that they've completely devastated the Eastern Donbass, turned it into mud, and all those people have died. I don't think anybody wants that.
And this is war. I mean, Russia's involved in this. They're the ones who initiated it. I find it absolutely hilarious. There's this really great post that said, ways you know that you're a bootlicker for the empire. And it's that you completely ignore all of the things the United States and NATO did to escalate tensions, which resulted in this war. And if you bring it up, if someone brings it up, you get offended. And I'm like, right. This politics is not happening in a vacuum. Russia didn't one day be like, Vladimir Putin didn't twirl his mustache and say, "I'm going to be evil today." No, it's a fight over special interests, resources.
They need the seaport. Right. They want Sevastopol. They want to fortify the roads down into Crimea through Eastern Donbass, the East 97 and East 105, those two freeways. And if they can fortify that, and Russia can take that and solidify their base in Crimea, Sevastopol is the city. Yeah. They'll start pumping out goods and services into the Mediterranean Sea, but that will make Turkey a vulnerability for NATO because Turkey's in NATO.
Ian, I hope that you are ready to die so that NATO can defend Ukraine's water port.
Yeah, it's more that they don't want Russia to have it because then they think Russia and Turkey will buddy up and that Turkey will leave NATO and then NATO will fall apart. If Turkey leaves NATO, I mean,
I want to strongly push back on the idea that without Turkey, NATO falls apart.
Well, it's already kind of trash.
That is completely
the bigger risk.
Just that idea is completely not true.
I mean, it's a nuclear power that controls Russia's access to the Mediterranean. I think if it sides,
it's not just Russia's. They control the Bosphorus, which is all of the Black Sea into the Mediterranean.
Which is, I don't know, mostly Russian. It's Ukrainian also. So they could shut off Ukrainian access to, or some of it anyway.
What's so wild about it is the hypocrisy. Because Putin's been saying, for 15 plus years, do not put NATO troops on my border or else. And I'm like, how did we feel about it when the when the Russian Soviet Union was putting missiles in Cuba? Yeah. It's a no-go. And if they were... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just want to say Turkey does not have nuclear weapons.
Are you sure?
I'm looking at it right now. I looked it up. I Googled it. So, and that's part of why we get so many countries in NATO. NATO exists partially to limit proliferation of nuclear weapons. That's why you get countries to join NATO. We offer you protection. We have nuclear weapons. Don't develop nuclear weapons of your own. That was the whole point of the United States being kind of the big dog in NATO and stuff, is to prevent nuclear proliferation. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good.
Thank you.
And speaking of nukes, something we should entertain is the possibility of an EMP bomb. If people aren't familiar, there are devices allegedly and I don't doubt it, that can take down entire power grids. And
I'm pretty sure we know they exist.
Right.
A nuclear detonation releases an EMP intentionally. Right. I'm pretty sure we've isolated and we can generate an EMP.
And the
a neutron bomb.
Right. And the last several Department of Homeland Security heads have said that, a grid down scenario is one of their number one concern because there's so many different things that could do it. It could be a solar flare. It could be bad actors. It could be a hack job. And there's all these, if you look into this, there's been so many different electrical grids or the substations around the United States that have had been mysteriously hacked and infiltrated by various hackers. It's like, who's doing that and why?
Jimmy, have you ever read the book 1 Minute After?
Yes, actually,
Okay.
yeah. I got it on audiobook. I got a few of those.
It's a good book.
Is that about after the nuclear?
About an EMP. So they shoot an EMP off over the U.S., light it off about 100 miles up or whatever. The EMP takes out the entire grid, and it's based, I think, in North Carolina.
I believe so.
Correct. I think it's Asheville is the area, but it talks about the things that could happen and stuff like that. Newt Gingrich actually wrote the foreword to one of the editions. I'm not sure which one. So, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, hey, if you guys want a conspiracy, in between now and the next year, I'm convinced that there's going to be some sort of event. They're going to come at us with some sort of curveball. Like everyone, they're putting out COVID mandates into the media now. And I'm like, I think that there's a sizable portion of the populace that will not comply. I don't know what the percentage is. Even if it's just 1 out of 3, that's too many. And I don't think that they're going to pull it this time. I'm expecting a curveball. So what better, like if you study history and like Sun Tzu and the art of war. So instead of nuking us or doing a bomb off the coast to flood us, why not just turn off our lights, let us destroy each other from within? Most people are not prepared. But you know how most people would die if the grid goes down? Waterborne illness. Most people do not have sterile water. We take it for granted. You turn on the faucet and you're fine.
I gotta stop you right there. You said how most people would die?
That might not. All right, most might not be the word.
A significant number.
Millions of people would die from infection of going to the bathroom because their stomachs can't handle that raw water that's going to turn once the water treatment facilities go down. So never mind percentages, but
when the water treatment plants go down, there's no water at all.
Right.
So in places like New York and Chicago, you turn the faucet on and nothing comes out.
And game over, because how many 2 days without water, 3 days, and you're just incapacitated.
I would say by day 2, people are drinking each other's blood.
Yeah,
I am not exaggerating. There was Martyr Maid has this post about what civil war really is and what people don't understand, and it really is something we bring up all the time, that people it's like there's nothing you can do about the fact that people live in movie reality, that they don't think about how the world actually works, and so they imagine people marching with uniforms. Martyr Maid and a couple other people had tweeted, civil war is like everything's, you're the conflict is happening. You see it on the news. You go to bed and you don't wake up because a warring faction at 3 a.m. sneaks in your house, kills you in your sleep, takes your stuff. Or you wake up and your neighbor's house is on fire and you see his corpse lying on the sidewalk because a warring faction came in and he was a target for some reason. These kinds of things are likely to happen first in a breakdown. So outside of the concept of civil war, right? Like let's not be too cliche with Timcast here. Let's say EMP bomb, nuclear strike, cyber attack. Rachel Maddow said they're going to shut off our electricity. They could with a cyber attack. Yeah, if our grid goes down, I think if communications go down, that's it. The fabric of the United States evaporates overnight. And you ever play the video game Fallout 3?
Yes.
I love Fallout 3. It's the best video game ever made. One of them. And the Enclave. Let me give everybody a general understanding. I assume most of you know Fallout 3. Some of you might not. In the Fallout series, in 2077, China invades Alaska because there's dwindling fossil fuels and they need access to new resources. War breaks out. Nukes go flying. Planet gets bombarded and most people die. A large portion of people in the U.S. go into underground vaults to try and survive. In Fallout 3, I forgot where I was going with this.
What it would be like, with after the fallout from it? I mean, just the complete societal collapse and everything else?
Yeah, I forgot the point I was going to make because I started explaining the basic story.
It was about the Enclave, and then you're talking about
you got it. There it is.
Communication.
The remnants of civilization.
So in Fallout 3, the bad guys are the Enclave. They're the U.S. government. But they're completely powerless and they have no control over what is the United States. So in the Fallout world, there's the New California Republic, which is the remnants of California are rebuilding and forming their own government. But the Enclave is actually the descendants of U.S. military, U.S. government that went into Mount Weather and other bunkers when the bombs fell. When they emerged, they had no way to control what was left.
The wasteland.
The apocalyptia. So in the event communications go down, how does the military communicate? They've got contingencies, I'm sure. And they have protocol for what happens if the communications go down. But what about local police, federal law enforcement? It is there's going to be a decay, a breakdown as you get out further and further outside of the government of actual communications. So what happens then if the grid goes down and communications are blocked for some reason, we lose the internet, we lose electricity, we're turning our radios on, trying to figure out what's going on. And then bad people go on the radio and say, this is Lieutenant so-and-so, I'm in charge of this area, and it's a random guy. Then he comes in and says, we're organizing. What if it's a militia and they feel justified and say to themselves, if we don't get a hold of this, it's going to get bad. I'm taking charge. Put out a radio call, put on their militia uniforms, look like military, show up with guns. They're not bad guys, but they're not the government. And now you've got conflicted factions trying to figure out who's in charge and who isn't.
It would happen. It'd be a power vacuum. Somebody would try to take it.
You need, like, if you're in a city, you're doomed. Okay, so that, I mean, we can take the you can take like the idea of survival off the table. You're dead. You are a walking corpse. So if you live, I'm not kidding.
You're going to be someone's lunch.
You're totally doomed. You have, like, if you're on Manhattan, you're doomed. You're never going to get off the island. If you're on Long Island, you're doomed. You're never getting off there. If you're in Southern Connecticut, you're going to die. If you're in Jersey, you're going to die. There's like,
well, to be fair, pointing out like.
If 5% live, I'm generally right. Is kind of my point, you know.
Right, but you know, for Jersey, so long as you're not in the peninsula, right? If you're on the islands, Manhattan, Long Island, the New Jersey Peninsula, you're done.
Yeah.
When we were in New Jersey when the COVID lockdown started, and there were rumors going around they were going to shut down the bridge. Connecticut already had checkpoints with New York because New Yorkers were fleeing to Connecticut. So when we heard that they were like, that's what everyone was afraid of. They were like, hey, if they lock that down, you're stuck. You ain't going anywhere. You're on a peninsula. So we were like, we should probably leave now. And so we packed up and we came down to where we are now earlier than we intended. And that was just the lockdown scare. But to your point, in terms of the land areas that have access to the larger mass United States have a substantially higher chance of survival. Manhattan Island, good luck.
Doomed. You're dead. You're not.
Look at Maui. Look at Lahaina.
Yeah.
The police blocked the one road out.
Your best bet is to know your sheriffs and your local law enforcement, or at least be familiar with them. So that way you have an idea of who might have authority in your area. But that ain't going to work if you're in a city with police, because police are not the same as sheriffs. Like they have a different different outlook and stuff. And
authority is meaningless.
Yeah,
guns aren't.
Have you? But that's where the authority will be drawn from. Have you guys seen The Last of Us, the TV show?
Yeah, actually, I just finished up that first season recently.
Yeah, I like it.
Very interesting.
What people need to understand, there is no good or evil in a conflict. There is survival. And what's going to happen is, dude, you're walking down the street. Let's say it's a month, 2 months after the grid gets knocked out and there's chaos happening and there's conflict. There's people starting to rebuild communications. The U.S. government is still asserting its authority, but as you move further west and things get further and spread out, communications break down, distance between cities increases. East Coast may be stable, West Coast will be increasingly unstable. So let's say it's several months later and you're walking down a road and you've got your rifle on your back and your water, and then you come across, you see in the distance there's some kind of settlement, and you're like, well, let's go see who's there. And then all of a sudden there's a bang and you're dead. In fact, you're dead before you even hear the sound. The people who live in that settlement aren't going to be like, oh, hey, look, a fellow walking towards us with a gun.
That's
Let's see what he has to say.
About video games and this like fantasy of survival apocalypse genre and games. Like, dude, you get hit once, you're dead.
Everybody dies.
But it's not just that.
There's no fun.
It's that depending on the level of conflict, the assumption that you can walk up to any kind of settlement and they're going to be like, howdy, stranger. I couldn't help but notice your arm there. You want to come hang out? They're either going to jump out from they're going to come out from fortified positions. You can't see them, pointing weapons at you, telling you to get on the ground. You're going to lose your weapons. You're going to lose everything. And if you're lucky, they'll turn you away and take all your stuff.
Right. The loot drop.
Right. But and maybe they won't kill you, or maybe they just do it and think, if you find out, if this person wants revenge, if this person tells someone where we are, we're done. Don't know, don't care. This idea that everyone's going to be super nice to each other and rolling this together. Crazy talk.
No, strangers will be looked at as enemy. You wouldn't know who you could trust. And by the way, like like the boom shot, you're dead. if you get hit in the arm or leg or wherever, you're just wounded, you're gonna get infected and die like a week later in a very terrible, terrible way.
Most likely you're going to bleed out because most people don't have tourniquets.
Right.
Like most people don't have first aid on them.
Well-
like you get into a gunfight, your friend gets shot, he dies because he bleeds out because you didn't put a tourniquet in your car. And I guarantee you don't have one in your car.
But you have shoelaces.
A lot of people don't know how to use a tourniquet.
Right, exactly. Let me tell you guys something really simple. A shoelace and a pen. Have a nice day. Google it. Figure it out. But I've got...
Dudes are dead.
But this is the... Look. I'd be willing to place a large wager that the majority of people who listen to this show have a substantially higher survival rate than the average person. And you have to be paying attention to what's going on in the world to watch a show like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, come on. You could be listening to Barstool. You could be talking about the World Series of Poker. You could be talking about football or
the fucking ball game,
the drafts or whatever. And hey, man, do your thing. I got no beef. Enjoy your life. Be happy. Live, laugh, love, whatever. But when it comes to what's happening in the world, maybe it all settles down. Maybe nothing bad happens. You know, there's a big good cause for optimism in Trump's current polling numbers, economic numbers. Things are looking fairly positive. That, you know, I genuinely believe that while Trump is far from a perfect individual, the Trump path slowly winds things down. In fact, I don't know about conflict in the United States, but internationally, World War III nuclear bombs.
It's the only one that actually might have an off-ramp. There is nothing coming out of the Democratic Party or the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment that in any way indicates that there is an off-ramp for the conflict in Ukraine. It is, we got to win, and that ain't happening.
But if Trump does get elected, while that may avert us being wiped out in nuclear hellfire, civil conflict in the United States is still a high possibility.
There is a lot of turmoil coming in the next 10 years, or possible in the next 10 years.
But I want to add really quick to everybody, just as an aside, download General Survival app. Like, it's not a proper noun. It's not proper. Google search. Go to your Google Play Store. Type in Survival app. Download 3 of them.
Also, some cool items are CB radio, shortwave radio that you can talk into to communicate with someone if the grid goes down and you have solar power, and Life Straw. Life Straw is the name of the company, but you can take dirty river water and drink it through this Life Straw.
Right in the river. You can stick the straw right in.
And
Baofeng UV5R is a two-way radio.
Yeah.
I think it's VHS, definitely UHS, and they're like $25. And they are the most common radio going around. They're super easy to use. Get one. You can get them for super dirt cheap.
Baofeng.
I also want to say download
BAO.
the app called Picture This. Are you guys familiar with that one?
UV5R, got it.
That's the app where like you take a picture of it and it tells you what it is, basically. right?
Picture
Plants,
this.
et cetera.
Yep.
Yeah.
Picture This can take a picture. It takes a picture of, I believe it's plants.
Yeah, I think so.
That
And-
reminds me.
Yeah. Tells you if you can eat them.
Yep. Buy hard copy books too, just in case there's
Yes,
a situation
that
with the
was what I
grid.
was gonna
A
say.
survival book as well as a first aid book. And there are also books, which just made me think of it, is that depending what region you live in, for example, I'm in Arizona, I'm in the Southwest, so I have a book that's literally edible plants of the American Southwest.
Yep.
And you can do it on any region you're in, because especially when it comes to first aid and other, survival situations, if the internet's not available, all you have is the hard copy, and we take that stuff for granted.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can also download the Ranger Handbook, which is the actual military range, like the U.S. Rangers. You can download their handbook, and that's got a lot of stuff in there. I just put a link to it on my Twitter.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.